Buenas tardes a todo el mundo. Hoy tenemos la oportunidad de escuchar a Sabiha al Khemir, escritora, artista y experta en arte islámico, que nos va a hablar de la geometría de la luz, introducción a la Exposición Internacional de Arte del Mundo Islámico en Sevilla, #Nur. Yo quiero destacar que en el día de hoy tenemos algo más que una conferencia que será importante, sin duda, una conferencia que será brillante también, sin duda. Tenemos la invitación a que todos ustedes visiten en Sevilla una exposición organizada por la Fundación Focus-Abengoa. Es una magnífica exposición de arte islámico. La exposición se va a presentar en Sevilla durante varios meses y posteriormente irá a Dallas, en Estados Unidos. Con nosotros se encuentra también la directora de Focus-Abengoa, Anabel Morillo León, que será quien realice la introducción a la personalidad de Sabiha al Khemir. Gracias, Anabel.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias a todos por acudir a esta conferencia. Y le quiero agradecer sobre todo al director de Casa Árabe, a don Eduardo López Busqué, la acogida y que nos ha brindado, y sobre todo abrir las puertas para poder presentar en Madrid, en Casa Árabe, una gran exposición internacional sobre arte islámico, nuestra primera gran exposición internacional sobre arte islámico, que ha sido posible gracias al trabajo y esfuerzo de la doctora Sabiha al Khemir, que durante 4 años nos ha acompañado en esta aventura, que por fin se ha hecho realidad en Los Venerables el pasado viernes. La exposición está abierta, como ha dicho Eduardo, durante 3 meses en un edificio maravilloso que recomiendo que visitéis, el Hospital de Los Venerables, un edificio barroco del siglo XVII, que acoge este proyecto expositivo con un enfoque luminoso y nuevo de la doctora Sabiha al Khemir. Sabiha quizás no es tan conocida en España, es su gran primer proyecto en España. Ella ha sido la directora del Museo de Doha, en Qatar, ella hizo la colección completa. Ella fue la comisaria de la exposición en el Louvre de Córdoba, Samarcanda, y recientemente ha hecho una exposición itinerante en Estados Unidos que ha estado dando la vuelta por todo el país. Y ahora, por primera vez, presenta en España, y luego llevaremos a Dallas, Nur, la luz en el arte y la ciencia del mundo islámico. Tiene la palabra la doctora Sabiha al Khemir.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Masá al Khair. Estamos en Casa Árabe. Not just the place, but the concept of Casa Árabe is very beautiful. So I'm honored and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for coming and thank you for taking interest in our exhibition, Nur. Sorry. Nur. The title of the exhibition, Nur, is an Arabic word which covers the physical and metaphysical aspects of light. 2 dimensions that are inseparable in the traditional arts of Islamic culture. As a title, the Arabic word Nur becomes a key to a new world. In fact, in the gestation period of the exhibition, as I worked with the teams, it was a pleasure to hear people who don't speak Arabic, but everybody is comfortable saying Nur, 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 Nur. And you feel that with one word we have crossed with such ease. It's quite amazing. So this exhibition brings 150 objects. Well, to be honest with you, is a little bit more than 150 if you count the little pieces within the pieces. So let's say over 150 objects of different mediums, from metalwork to ceramics to manuscripts to wood carvings, etc. So it's a cross media from Spain to Central Asia and from the 8th century to the 20th century. So, conceptually, the exhibition draws a huge arc across the culture of the Islamic world. It presents artistic and scientific material, but highlights the connection between art and science throughout. So in other words, it's the art in science and the science in art. But at the end of the day, we are looking through the prism of art, because even when we are presenting scientific material, it is through beautiful manuscripts. It is through, even the instruments themselves, whether it is an astrolabe or some other scientific instrument, we are presenting the material as a work of art. So the point of view is from the artistic point of view. Let me see if this works. It does. That's great. The approach of this exhibition is about making creative connection. Creative connections that invite us to see for the first time. So behind me is a slide. It's not a mistake. It's not the usual mistake. You thought there should be something there, and here you are in front of a blank slide. Well, it's a blank slide because I'm just simply presenting you nothingness. So the exhibition really starts with nothingness. And the exhibition, which is, in terms of its concept, its content, its design, is made as one with certain coherence, actually starts as a journey, starts with walking through a white space, an empty space. You might ask why. We have over 150 objects. Why are we giving you nothingness to start with? Well, because, as I said, the exhibition would like to invite us to look for the first time. And so the journey starts with walking through this white corridor, white being the color that holds the spectrum of light. And this white space, this white corridor, is also a clean slate, a symbol of looking for the first time. I mean, we could say Islamic art is a very useful tool for bridging, cultures and in a way to learn about Islamic culture, but we could also say art simply is. We don't have to give political agenda to art. We just look at art, it is beautiful, and art is. But in this case, Islamic art is a very powerful tool in giving us an insight into Islamic culture. And so, as much as we have something to learn, as much as there is a need to learn about Islamic culture, there seems to me to be a need for unlearning. And so, this white space is a symbol of this unlearning that is really quite essential for us to look for the first time. I started the exhibition with a connecting thread. A number of pieces with a radiating design welcomes the visitor on a journey of discovery. So in other words, the idea is to communicate a concept through rays. So it doesn't matter in a way whether it is a bowl, a shield, or what the object is. The function of the object is not so important. So in other words, what the exhibition is trying to do is to communicate a visual language that is found across the Islamic world, a visual language that is communicated to you directly. In the case of the concept of nur, the concept of rays, you are looking at, as I said, bowls, plates, or shields, but it is one thing that is communicated, the concept of rays. This is what meets you as you enter the exhibition. In a way, I'm giving you today a preview, in the hope of seducing you to come to Seville and see the exhibition. So we go from there into an introductory space. This introductory space has pieces from different cultures. Objects related to Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are presented together. But this is not a religious exhibition. However, light is a shared metaphor in most cultures. This tile panel that you see on the screen from 19th century Isfahan, representing Christ with a book in which is written in Arabic and Coptic the passage from the Bible, I am the light of the world. أنا هو نور العالم. And this is a 14th century Egyptian mosque lamp, which has the Quranic verse, the verse of An-Nur, referring to God as light upon light. Nurun ala nur. And this is a 19th century menorah made by the Jewish community in Morocco for the Festival of Light. It's a sort of folk art kind of object. So these pieces are symbols of where these different cultures meet with the concept of light, light as a symbol that unites different cultures. The exhibition is structured around 8 themes. Each theme is related to light in a tangible or metaphysical way. Each theme is a spotlight bringing together a group of related examples. So, in a sense, there is a kind of cumulative approach. And by that, I don't mean accumulation. The idea wasn't to bring, as many objects as we can bring, but the idea was to build a kind of effect through the same type of style that comes in different form in pieces that are made in different periods, different parts of the Islamic world, but have a connecting thread. And that connecting thread is light, whether it comes to you in terms of the technique or in terms of a metaphorical dimension or in terms of light as the art of knowledge, as the science, the light of knowledge, the luz del conocimiento. So, we go to our first main theme, which is the illuminated page. The illuminated page displays a number of manuscripts that are illuminated with gold and silver, or also which have the presence of color, and how basically illumination in gold and color brings light to the page. In fact, light that goes beyond the page. How does that light go beyond the page? Well, illuminated manuscripts were considered very precious objects, as you can imagine. And so, in an indirect way, illumination also contributed to the preservation of knowledge. What you see here is an 18th century manuscript from Turkey. And as you can see, the gold on the page literally, is like light. emanating from the page. The so-called Blue Quran is a unique manuscript, the only Islamic manuscript written on indigo pages, produced in 9th, 10th century Tunisia. Its pages are now scattered in collections all over the world. I would now let the lady help us show you a snippet from the video that is in the exhibition. The gold lettering in this manuscript, as I said, against deep indigo, is literally like the stars in a deep blue night. The metaphor of this manuscript is really like the cosmos. It has a universality that speaks to everyone. So I'm particularly pleased that it is part of the Noor exhibition. Pages came from Tunisia, where this manuscript was originally made, and it is a first for Noor. What you just saw, as I said, is a snippet from a video. There are videos in the exhibition, virtual components, not to reproduce works of art. That wouldn't be interesting, because the works of art are there, they are talking to you directly, and they are powerful in their own way. And we don't need to see reproductions of them. But what the virtual components do, and it is a medium of light, as you know, is bring the page close to you. Well, actually bring a depth forward, in a sense that Islamic art, what we call Islamic art, is multi-layered. It is very rich in detail. It is intense, it is textured, it is... And that closeness brings another dimension of these works of art and invites us to look closely in a way that transforms sight into insight. And so you have these points of light, I call them points of light, in the themes that bring you the essence of each theme. So here, for example, we have in the illuminated page theme, that section has this screen on which you actually look down, you know, so it's like a well of Luth that's bringing this image, quite small in size. And it has quite a bit of information which invites you to learn with a seamlessness, you know, very natural way of learning without really bombarding you with information. And it's almost poetry with image. So that adds another dimension to the exhibition. The next theme, and just to make it clearer for you, the exhibition is really constructed like a journey. And these themes, each one of them is like a station in this journey that unfolds towards a geometry of light. And we will come to that in a minute. So the next theme is the metal inlay, a luminous contrast. What you are seeing on the screen is a tiny inkwell from 13th century Syria, inlaid in silver and gold, and it shows hunting scenes, and you can see the inlay technique. It lights up the base metal. I mean, when I say small, this is less than 6 centimeters high. And yet the imagery lends itself to a huge scale. This is another example. It's another 13th century inkwell inlaid with the signs of the zodiac. The top has animated calligraphy, as you can see, with the shafts of the letters ending in human faces. And they form a kind of sun motif. These are benedictory wishes and nice things, from fortune to happiness, etc. So, and you can see the faces, they look rather puzzled. So we move to the next theme, and it is about transparency and color. This theme brings together a group of pieces made of precious and semi-precious stones and enamel painted glass. What you see is an 18th century rock crystal cup with gold, rubies, and emeralds from Mughal India. Very refined. It's actually tiny, very small. And it has a rosette inside it, which comes as a surprise. We have a mirror showing that rosette. So, you know, the journey of the exhibition has all these kind of, you know, surprises, and it's almost like an inner journey full of contemplation and moments where the object is giving you its inner power and its inner beauty, in a way. Let's show you another example, is an enameled glass bottle made in 14th century Syria, which shows Chinese influence in the cloud motifs, etc. Don't know how much is clear in the screen. Yes, it is good. It comes from the Gulbenkian in Portugal, from the Gulbenkian collection. By the way, the pieces come from collections, institutions, private collections and institutions all over the world. And how extraordinary to be in Azaharawi, to be speaking about Noor, the exhibition, and to hear the call to prayer.
It must be a telephone.
It's extraordinary, though. I think it is wonderful. So the next theme is the art of lustre. Lustre is a technique which produces metallic sheen on ceramics. Colors can vary from mustard green, like this one, it's a bowl from the Brooklyn Museum, which was produced in 10th century Iraq, to a lemon or honey or chocolate color, and even to a rich ruby red like this. This is actually a candle holder from 17th century Spain. As you probably know, the technique started in Iraq. I mean, lustre painted ceramics was an invention by Islamic potters. So from Iraq, the technique traveled to Egypt, to Syria, to Iran, and eventually to Spain. And it is from Spain, from Al-Andalus, that ceramic lustre was transferred to the rest of the world. The exhibition brings together a range of lustre-painted ceramics of different hues and illustrates the migration story of lustre technique. So you have, if you remember the cumulative approach that the exhibition is trying to do, you have an array of examples of different colors, really, that present almost a kind of rainbow experience. The next theme, light of knowledge, the art of healing. This theme is related to the metaphorical dimension of light. It is about knowledge. There were, as you know, significant developments in many scientific fields in the Islamic world. The development of the algebra and the decimal number system, and the revolutionary zero, the use of a zero as a number, meant that complex calculations were easier to perform. I mean, we take zero nowadays for granted, of course, but can you imagine the world without the number zero? So the introduction of number zero was a real revolution In 9th century Baghdad, Bayt al-Hikmah, the house of wisdom, was a center for knowledge where extensive translation of Greek texts took place. A lot of these texts are only known through the Arabic translations which saved them for the world. And Spain played a key role in the transfer of knowledge with a massive translation program in 12th century Toledo from Arabic into Latin and Spanish. Arabic medicine was at the forefront, and Arabic was the lingua franca of science. What you see here is a 13th century manuscript by Azaharawi, a 10th century surgeon from Cordoba. What you see are pages from the manuscript, and they are loose here, but in fact, the manuscript has been restored and came to the exhibition in a very healthy state, we are pleased to say. It came from the National Library in Rabat, and it's a very rare manuscript. Azaharawi wrote even about plastic surgery, calling it the medicine of beauty. This is quite avant-garde for the 10th century. On the left, you see actual medieval instruments, very rare pieces, which come from the As-Sabah collection, Dar al-Athar al-Islamiyya in Kuwait. And many of these surgical instruments, as you can see, I mean, in their shape and their design, they continue to be very similar to instruments at the present. These instruments were excavated in Egypt. And another example from this section is a diagram showing the nerves of the body from 17th century Iran. The next theme is the theme of ingenious devices. Some ingenious devices were built to solve practical problems, but also to entertain. These are the court curiosities. What you see here is a lamp which was designed in 9th century Baghdad by scientists, 3 brothers called Banu Musa. And this lamp is a self-trimming lamp. It trims itself as it goes along. So it's quite modern, and it has a mechanical memory that allows it to do that, which is fascinating. This particular manuscript came from the National Library in Berlin. This is an astrolabe from Pakistan. The astrolabe, as you know, was the handheld computer of its day. It was used for different functions, including telling the time and measurements and other things. I mean, one could easily talk for 2 hours about the uses of the astrolabe, but I will spare you that. It's a scientific tool that is artistic, and there are some incredible examples in the exhibition, in the Noor exhibition, from a tiny North African pocket astrolabe to a huge astrolabe about 1 meter in diameter, which comes from India. This astrolabe comes from the Museum of Science in London, and the astrolabe I just mentioned, which is huge from India, comes from a private collection. So the astrolabe, as you know, was originally from ancient Greek, but the mathematics in the Islamic world brought it to a new height. It became a complex instrument that was capable of very sophisticated functions due to the advances of mathematics. The astrolabe leads us to the realm of the stars. And our next theme, the theme is essentially about astronomy and astrology. You know, in medieval times, astrology and astronomy were very close, and astrology was simply a branch of astronomy. Here, this is a manuscript from 11th century. It is actually the earliest manuscript from the Islamic world with illustrations that has survived. And it is in the Noor exhibition in Seville. So it's dated 1009. It is by the astronomer As-Sufi, who wrote basically about the fixed stars, stars that appear to be in the same position every night. And this astronomer, As-Sufi, really set the foundations for astronomy in many ways, because this particular manuscript is copied again and again, generation after generations, and we have in the exhibition copies from 16th century, etc., and later. And this piece actually found me. You know, when you start an exhibition and you're very excited, you have your wishful list and you think you're going to get this and get that, and you're disappointed when you don't get one piece. But in fact, you are sometimes surprised by pieces that find you, pieces that you didn't have in your wishful list, you didn't have in your initial list, but come to you. And this is a very interesting piece, because not only it was not displayed before, I found it by coincidence in the Wellcome Library. After having agreed the pieces, etc., I asked, you know, what's that? And I was shown this piece, and it was wonderful to see it. And I said, of course, we must have it. And they were generous enough to lend it. It's about 2 meters long. So it's a large piece showing the 12 signs of the zodiac. It is from 19th century Iran. And it shows a kind of popular interpretation of the signs of the zodiac. Now, it's an interesting twist, because it also creates almost a personal connection, you know, with the visitor. We actually have these reproduced in postcards if you want to come and buy your card. But it is a first for Noor. The realm of the stars leads us to geometry, where the motif of the star is actually the main components of most of geometrical motifs in so-called Islamic art. Geometric patterns can be, as you know, extended forever and ever in every direction. And so they became an appropriate expression for the infinite and the omnipresent. Geometric patterns with endless permutations reflect complex mathematics. And there are many examples in the Noor exhibition across medium, from stained glass to wood carvings, painted wood, to glazed ceramics, to textiles, to incredible sort of endless permutations and interpretations of the star motif. What you see here are 2 stained glass windows from Egypt or Morocco, 15th century. These 2 examples are from the Alhambra Palace in Granada, 14th century. And 3-dimensional geometry reached a peak in Islamic architecture. And there are amazing examples, as you know, in Iran, in Spain, etc. And in the exhibition, we show examples in the virtual, not just for contextualization, but to show how geometry, 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional, played an important role in different buildings, whether secular or religious. And in cases like the dome of the Two Sisters, you can see the geometry creating an endless sense of space where there is a division from, one geometrical shape is divided into smaller and smaller and smaller geometrical shape, whereby the transformation of a solid material like stone or stucco becomes an act of transformation of material into light. And it is that light within the space that we try to communicate in the exhibition. There is something timeless about geometrical patterns. As a visual language, it served the religious, as I said, and the secular, but in Spain particularly, Islamic geometric patterns are found in Christian, Jewish, Muslim buildings equally, from the 12th century synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca in Toledo to the Alcázar Palace in Seville. In that sense, really Spain is where there were extraordinary moments in history of la convivencia, a peaceful coexistence. La convivencia is perhaps a romantic idea, but it did happen in Al-Andalus. Perhaps the world is in need to learn from these experiences more than ever before. But historically, the convivencia wasn't always possible. There were difficult moments in the historical relationship between Spain and the Muslim world. In that sense, Abengoa's work and this exhibition, Noor, are of huge significance. The exhibition makes new connections and raises questions. It brings objects from different parts of the world. It brings them into a unique configuration. These objects meet for the first time, and this is a unique event. In a way, we can choose to look at these objects as, decorative art. At the end of the day, these are plates, glasses, objects that were part of everyday life, of people's lives. But these objects, all the way from Central Asia to Spain, have something that connects them, which come together in this exhibition on light to express a visual language that is particular to the Islamic world. And within it, we can find a way of seeing the world, a mentality, a way of thinking. The world is the world. The world doesn't change. It's how we present a configuration, how we present a coherence of the world. What is beautiful to us that says a lot about us. In that sense, these objects are very powerful and can tell us a great deal about Islamic culture and about light that has connected the Islamic world from Cordoba to Samarkand, but also from Seville to Dallas, because the exhibition will also go to Dallas next year. And it is the first time that the Dallas Museum will have a comprehensive exhibition on Islamic art. To have an exhibition called Noor in Seville, in Focus-Abengoa, in Los Venerables, is an extraordinary moment. I consider it historic because the meaning of it reflects a vision from the part of the organizers, and it reflects really an invitation to what is possible. And what's possible is huge. And light can never be contained. It is there if we want to bathe in it. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you walking through that white corridor.